Welcome to 100 Yards of Football this morning. We have an NFL Draft Prospect Special. Today, the player that we're going to highlight is Trevon Grimes out of the University of Florida. So, if you like the video today, please come in and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And joining me as always, this gentleman is coming to us live this morning from Key West, Florida. He was a one-time former NFL scout with the New York Jets under Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. He has an outstanding book that's on Amazon. Please go buy it. It's called Whatever It Takes. Excellent book about his life history. And finally, he was a finalist in 2017 for the GM job with the Cleveland Browns. My man, the legend of NFL scout drafting, Daniel Kelly. How you doing this morning, sir?
Hey, I'm doing really well, Mr. Turner. After that intro, I better bring it. Like Jarvis Landry would say, I better bring it.
Okay, let's get to it. Tell us about Trevon Grimes, Florida, out of the University of Florida.
Absolutely. This is a guy that, has good size at 6'4", 218. And, historically, I kind of like Florida players. Once upon a time, I told somebody I know who in scouting, I said, the guy is a reject. And the guy reminded me, my scouting friend said, at 6'4", at that size, there are no rejects. There's only so many people in the world that are that size. So that the size alone is pretty impressive. You're looking at a tall, lanky looking wide receiver. You're looking at somebody who has kind of thin lower legs, and somebody who looked a little bit better in my mind in 2019 film than he did 2020. He had a little bit better hands and a little bit yards after the catch in 2019. Mr. Turner, I just could not warm up to this guy. He looked kind of like in a way like a poor man's Kenny Galladay with the Detroit Lions. He was fairly domestic numbers in 2020, 38 receptions, 589 yards, 9 touchdowns, 15.5 yard average. And that's an impressive average. Don't get me wrong on that. He was actually better, I think, down towards the red zone than he was towards, between the 20s, if you want my opinion on that. There was just nothing outside of his game that was dominant, I thought. The size did catch my attention. I thought he had average quickness and release off the line of scrimmage, struggles to create separation and route leverage. I saw some tightness and rigidity when he was trying to change direction. It looked a little too rounded at the break point for my taste. He had average, decent hands. And then the Senior Bowl, that's really a big time for guys to shine. At the Senior Bowl, I went back and watched the one-on-ones, and he struggled some. Sometimes he caught the ball, sometimes he didn't. He kind of struggled to create separation, which was a concern. He didn't look dominant whatsoever. Did had some ability to catch the ball and the jump ball, the 50-50s because of his size. That's where I like him. Again, I like him in the red zone where he can throw that fade into the end zone. He can jump up and catch the ball. He kind of looks more like an athlete or maybe a basketball player than he does a wide receiver, which is also why I like him in that role in the end zone as well. I didn't like his vibe and his energy either. He just kind of seemed to play, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, he always kind of gave off this energy of being pissed off. He seemed kind of angry, when he was out there, and I don't know where that's coming from. Decent speed. He runs a 4.47 40. But again, like we talked about in a previous episode, there is a difference between playing speed and track speed. He's a young man that did run track, but I did not see it translate. He did not run away from people or blow the doors off defensive backs. This is a guy that I think has some value because of his size. But overall, there was nothing that was that dominant or that impressive. What are your thoughts, Mr. Turner?
I'm gonna tell you, I like the young man from the University of Florida. He came out of high school. He went to Ohio State. Things didn't work out. Came back home. But I look at the overall picture. I look at the young man when he went to high school. He went to Thomas Aquinas, one of the best high schools in the state of Florida in Fort Lauderdale. The Bozer brothers went there. Joey and Nick, we know how good of football players they are. Then the playmaker, Mr. Michael Irvin. But what stuck out of my mind about this young man, I just don't think he's hit the surface yet, is being a wide receiver. Because sometimes when you change in schools, things happen. It's about a sense of maturity. But however, the guy's an athlete. As a 15-year-old in the 10th grade. He won the 300-meter state champion in the hurdles. Then he came back and repeated as a state champion. Then he was ranked 9th in the country and in the top 200 in the world. So this young man has an outstanding track background. But most of all, he went to Ohio State that I just mentioned, didn't work out. He goes to Florida. Now think about this. He's going to Florida to play the wide receiver position now, Daniel. Carlos Alvarez, Chris Collinsworth, Tyrone Young, Riedel Anthony, Ike Hilliard, Percy Harvin. You see what I'm saying? The history. Plus, he gets on campus, and he had to give Kadarius Toney his love. He was the guy that was the main receiver. Then last year, in 2019, Vance Jefferson. I think Vance Jefferson is playing pretty good with the Los Angeles Rams this past season. Don't you agree with me? I think he had a pretty good rookie season. But most of all, you know how I do it, Daniel. I go by big-time games and big-time game film. Absolutely. 2019 against LSU. 3 receptions, 30 yards, 10 yards a pop. Made some key receptions in that game. That LSU secondary, they had Christian Fulton, Grant Delpit, Derek Stingley Jr., I think, and plus Kerry Vincent Jr. I think all those guys one day going to be playing in the NFL. But like I said, when I look at him, he has some big playability. He's a guy that's a red zone threat. And most of all, I'll go back to the game film, SEC championship game, that 50-yard reception that he went up and snagged out of the air over Mr. Patrick Surtain Jr., who everybody saying is the best corner in this draft. But when you look at the history of the young man, oh, man, he makes me tingle because I think about Musa Muhammad that played with the Panthers. I think of Joe Jaravicious. That was a pretty good receiver out of Penn State. I think about Tyrone Calico, who came out of Middle Tennessee State, got drafted by the Tennessee Titans. All them same size, same build. Calico was a little more faster. Then I think about this young man I watched play when I was in high school, Ernest Gray, and went to Memphis State at the time and had a pretty good career with the New York Giants. Second round pick in the 1979 draft behind Phil Simms. And finally, he reminds me of a guy when I was at Arkansas from 78 to 82. He was a year ahead of me. He did pretty good in the National Football League. His name was Bobby Duckworth out of Camden, Arkansas. And I think we all know about Mr. Duckworth. So when Mr. Trevon Grimes, I love him because I think he hasn't really hit the scale of his potential. And you know this, Daniel. You've been a scout. You're a scout at a high level. The guy makes plays. And like I said, I'll go back to the Alabama game. Over Patrick Surtain, left, height, athlete. Final words on Mr. Grimes, Mr. Daniel Kelly.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of good points here, Mr. Turner. I think we're seeing this guy a lot of the same. I think we both touch on the athletic ability. I think we both touch on the fact he needs some time to develop, and he needs to develop even more. For that very reason, I would concur. And if we were sitting in the NFL war room right now, I would go ahead as a general manager and place a 5th to 7th round guy in this, grade on this guy. I think he's somebody that you bring in and you develop if you so choose to. I would be very interested if I was a GM and I ended up with this guy, or I walked into a building, he was on my roster. I'd be very interested to move him into the slot position where he could use that size. He seemed to kind of excel going across the middle on those quick slants and that. I would like to see what he could do in that slant position, kind of unorthodox, and use that size. And also that strength to kind of up muscle smaller nickelbacks, in the slot there. That's something I would do. I do think we're going to see this guy on Sundays in the National Football League. I think it's going to take a couple of years for him to develop. But, hey, if you get him in the 5th to 7th round, that's what it's all about, that stage of the game.
My final words on Trevon Grimes. As you see, Mr. Kelly has him going anywhere between the 5th or 7th round. I think he can inch up in the 4th round. When you think about this young man, I love him because I like his track background. This guy, as I said before, he was a state champion back-to-back as a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old in the 300-meter hurdles. So my final words here on 100 Yards Football. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. I'm Vincent Turner. Joining me today is the very talented Daniel Kelly. And to Mr. Grimes, I'll go with an old tune from the Temptations. Runaway Wild, Running Child. Y'all have a blessed day here on 100 Yards of Football.
God bless you guys. Thanks for watching.